All right, let's talk about something huge happening in India's education system. We're looking at a massive gamble, a reform that could literally reshape the future for millions and millions of students. So let's dive right in.
Okay, first, I want you to just take in this number 46.5 million. That's not a typo. That is the number of students in India's higher education system right now. It's just an absolutely staggering figure.
And for every single one of those students, their entire future is on the line because the system they're in is about to be completely rewired. It's like someone is hitting the reset button on the whole thing.
So that brings us to the really big question, right? The one we're going to try to unpack here. Is this massive change actually for the better? Let's take a look. Okay, so before we can even begin to understand this new proposal, we've got to get a handle on what this system looks like today. Let's break down the current state of play.
And I mean, the scale is just mind-boggling. You're talking about over 1,100 universities and more than 42,000 colleges. Now, for years, this enormous system has been managed by, well, a pretty messy patchwork of different groups, all with their own rules. This created a situation that experts call fragmented governance. And it's exactly what it sounds like. You had one group, the UGC, making rules for universities, then another, the AICTE, for technical schools, and yet another, the NCTE, for teacher training. And guess what? Their rules often overlapped, which, you can imagine, just led to a whole lot of confusion.
So the result of all that? A bureaucratic nightmare. Total confusion for colleges trying to follow the rules, and really inconsistent standards for students. It was this chaos that led to the 2020 National Education Policy basically saying, all right, we need to tear this down and start over. A complete overhaul.
So what's the big solution to this regulatory maze? The government's answer is simple in concept. One single, powerful regulator. Let's see how they plan to make that work. And that brings us to the star of our show today, the Vixit Bharat Shiksha Adikshan bill. We'll just call it the VBSAB. Its main goal sounds straightforward, but it's incredibly ambitious. Get rid of all those old separate regulators and create one single authority to manage everything. One roof for everyone. So this new commission would be built on 4 main pillars, or verticals. Think of it like this. First, you have the NHRC. They're the big boss, the main regulator setting the rules. Then you have the INHAC, which is all about accreditation, grading the quality of schools. Third is the GEC, which sets the academic standards, what students should be learning. And finally, the HEGC, which holds the purse strings and manages the funding. The idea is to keep these jobs separate so no one part has too much power or conflicting interests. Okay, so what's in it for the students? Well, on paper, the promises are huge. We're talking easier admissions and transfers, way better course choices in cool fields like AI and green energy, higher quality teaching, more options for funding and scholarships, and ultimately a degree that's recognized and respected anywhere in the world. That's the dream, anyway.
And there's always a but, isn't there? Not everyone is buying into this vision. In fact, this whole proposal has sparked some serious backlash from academics, student unions, and political opponents. So let's get into the other side of the story.
This table really lays out the core of the conflict. It's like 2 different languages are being spoken. Where the government says streamline governance, critics hear unchecked centralization of power. When the bill talks about promoting autonomy, they see it as a backdoor to punitive control over what universities can do. The push for national standards, that's seen as a threat to the power that states have traditionally held over education. And maybe the biggest one, efficient funding, sounds to many like a code word for commercialization and making education all about profit.
And then there's the whole issue of transparency, or the lack of it. See, a similar bill back in 2018 was actually put out there for the public to comment on. But this time around, the VBSAB was moved forward without that public consultation step. And that, of course, has led to a lot of people asking, what's the rush? What are they trying to hide?
Okay, but this next point is where things get really, really serious. Buried in the bill is a provision that critics have labeled the unprecedented criminalization of educational administration. Let that sink in. It means that university leaders, chancellors, deans could potentially face imprisonment if they don't comply with the new rules. The chilling effect that could have on academic freedom, it's hard to even overstate. So when you boil it all down, this entire reform effort comes down to a fundamental dilemma, a classic tug of war, the push for efficiency versus the need for equity. And to really understand what's at stake, you have to look at this chart, an incredible 81%, the vast, vast majority of India's higher education students go to state public universities. These aren't just schools. They are the absolute backbone of the system, the primary way that millions get access to an affordable education.
And this is where that fear about efficiency really hits home. The bill pushes universities to become self-financing. Critics look at that and say it's just a matter of time before tuition fees skyrocket. And if that happens, what about the students from poor and marginalized communities? It could effectively price them out, slamming the door to higher education shut for an entire generation. So here we are, back to that central question. The goal is ambitious, no doubt, to build a world-class education system in India. But the question that hangs over everything is this: can India chase that dream of global excellence without sacrificing equity, without leaving the vast majority of its students behind? That, right there, is the great education gamble.